Alright, this morning I did the Barber Beast on the bay up in Erie, Presqule Isle area. It's an obstacle course race. It's like 10 miles, 30 obstacles. Around, yeah, like I said, like Presqule Isle. It's put on by the Barber Institute up here in Erie. Benefits people with I guess mental and physical disabilities, so it's a really good cause. They actually really care about the people in the community, so I like to support it. I've been wanting to come back. I did it like 5 years ago on the 5th anniversary. I think this was the 9th anniversary this year. Would have been the 10th without COVID. It's a fun race. I enjoyed myself today. I think I finished like 7th overall, give or take a place. Didn't do as good as I wanted to. Never really got going. I don't know, I drove up last night, got in around the hotel about 10 o'clock. Didn't get to bed till like 1:30 range, maybe. Actually, probably a little later. Probably close to 2. I just couldn't sleep last night. Ate a little late. I think I ate at like 10 o'clock. My sheet sub. Hotel didn't have a refrigerator or a microwave, so I had to leave my breakfast sandwich out. That might have played a effect today, because I think turned my stomach a little bit just from setting out and then just trying to eat at room temp after like 10 hours, 11 hours of it just after it being made, just setting out all night. But I think it was like a 18-minute drive, 20 minutes, well, we'll just call it 20 minutes from my hotel this morning to the Woodruff amusement park, or whatever it's called. Something like that, something with like a W. I think it's like Wardolph or whatever. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it. Anyway, parking's there, packet pickups there, finish line's there. You get a shuttle from there out to the start line, which I don't know. Since the race is 10 miles, it's probably 6 or 7 miles out. It's like a 20-minute bus ride though, 25 minutes. So really doesn't make sense that it takes 25 minutes to get there when it's only 6 miles, but you can't drive fast on, I guess, those roads. So, and I don't know how, like, if the bus circles around, whatever it does. Anyway, it's like a 25-minute ride. Elbows are a little dinged up. Actually put my number on me instead of wearing a bib. So woke up at 6, left at 6:30. Got to the amusement park a little before 7. I didn't use the bag drop because vehicle parking was right there, so that was nice. So I just walked my bag back to my car real quick. That way I can get in and get out after the race. Got to the start line with the bus probably 35-40 minutes before the start. A little earlier than I would like to, but again, I didn't know exactly how long the bus was going to take or how efficient it was going to be. It was pretty good though. Talked to a couple people on the bus, but it just left a lot of time meandering before the race. Actually walked out to the beach when I first got there. It's very pretty, like sunrise type deal. The beach area is actually pretty nice, so I just watched it for a couple minutes. There's a couple dead fish I saw. I don't know if they're carp or walleye, whatever they were. Before I started warming up, I ditched the shirt before the race start. Well, let's just put it this way, that bus was freezing this morning. That bus was probably like 45, 50 degrees. She had it cranked up. So to actually get warm, jogged around a little bit. Looked at the one obstacle at the end of like the parking lot. Talked to a couple people that I knew before the start, and I'm like, that's sand, man. Anyway, the goal today was top 3, actually to win, but knock the perennial winners off. I just didn't have it in me. I sort of felt it last night. I just wasn't feeling it because I was actually thinking about staying home instead of driving up 3 hours, saving some money. But once the hotel got locked in for me not canceling on Thursday, I pretty much had to come up and spend another like 40 bucks in gas and then, you know, 20 bucks in food. Since I was already gonna be out like 80 bucks for the hotel and the race fee. I should have just stayed home and did the 5. Anyway, so I wasn't really feeling it at the start. I sort of knew it. I just wasn't energetic or switched on to that race mode. Not sure why, if it was just because I was tired or I just never got energized. Whatever the case may be. So we all started, took off real quick, hit the sand right away, did this wall, a vertical wall that you had to like go across horizontally. Well, here it's double-sided, so you're supposed to go up one side and down the other. Well, the masses, because it was so quick, it became a cluster very quickly because you did one side and then people were going down the other side already, like just because there was 2 walls, but it was double-sided, so you had like 4 lanes coming, so you had to like circle back around and try to get back in line, so it just became a cluster real quick. If I was them, I would just say do one side and be done with it. Then I took off, but again, there was like 50 people like right there all in line within like 5-10 seconds, so it wasn't really too efficient. But then we took off on a little bit of a road, passed a couple people real quick. I know I was like top 5 maybe at the time, top 4, whatever. I don't think I ever cracked top 3 at all today. I let the couple people just go because I figured I had 10 miles, you know, there's no point in burning out. Even though I did go way faster than I wanted to, the first couple miles I definitely felt it running through the sand. I knew I should have pulled back a little bit, I didn't. But then that second obstacle was like a balance beam. Since I ran a little bit too hard, I didn't slow my breathing down or whatever. So when we went across, I ended up falling the first time. I had to go start over and do it again after I settled down for like 10-15 seconds. It's just like 2 chains on each end on a plank, and just, you know, just having like, we'll just say I redlined a little bit, pushing too hard early on. My legs were got a little bit shaky, so walking across it just was like, and then it like ended up falling off. Not a big deal. I recovered real quick. Caught right back up to people. I know we went. I'm trying to think of all the order because I don't have the list on me real quick. I know we did like a swamp. Like it was like waist deep swamp in some spots with like mangroves or whatever they are. I don't know what you want to call them. In it, I fell a couple of times. I was waiting for something to just go like through my neck. There's a couple of dips in there. That's when I was still like top 4, top 5, because I could see a couple of people in front of me trying to keep track. I know I got hung up on the over-under a little bit. That's always a slow obstacle for me, being a little bit shorter and only doing it like, you know, once a year. That's always a slow obstacle for me. It always takes me like 3-4 minutes when it takes other people maybe a minute to do. Just because I'm trying to be sure of my footing, and then, you know, have like both legs wrapped around and then swing down, just making sure myself, where other people just do it like fluidly all in one motion, but I don't have long enough legs to do that, so it takes me a really long time. So right there I've lost a couple minutes from the lead pack. That's probably when I dropped down like 8th-ish. There's definitely a lot of sand running today. A lot of long sections of sand. I don't know, if you look at the list of obstacles, they're not always like the hardest thing. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. So if I say an obstacle, it's out of order, bear with me. I can't remember the exact order right now without having the list again on me. But let's just, there was like triangle things. I'll use triangles a few times, but we have to like hop, skip, cross, you know, like lunge across like 5 or 6. I did have trouble on that the first time through. I actually slipped off. I made it to like 4 out of the 6. I think it's because I started on the left foot the first time, and I needed to start on my right foot, like my power leg, so I can get the momentum to push me farther down the line on the second one or third one, whatever. I just needed the stronger leg, and I started on my weaker leg, so I fixed that real quick. I was running with a dude for like the first 5 or 6 miles. I was actually talking with him a little bit, so obviously I wasn't pushing too hard. I was averaging like 15-minute miles. Even on like the flat open sections, I just never turned and burned. And I'm looking at my watch as I'm running in the and basically the obstacles were in spurts, so there was like big gaps in between some of them, and we'll say like half mile or even a little bit more in some of the sections. And I'm still doing like 8-9 minute miles, and I'm just looking at my watch. I'm like, what are you doing? Why aren't you moving? So like right there shows you I just didn't have it today. I don't know what, even when we weren't in the sand, I was still dropping those times. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, I should be dropping like 6 7s, not 8 9s. So it is what it is. I remember the one you dipped a bucket in the lake, carried up the hill real quick. I splashed water on my head. That was probably like halfway. There was a trail section that had some barricades. Instead of just like jumping over them like I could, I just stepped over them because I was just like I just knew I didn't have it, so I wasn't giving it 100% effort. Which, you know, I'm not saying I would have got top 3 if I, but I still wouldn't have finished 7th. I could have probably knocked it up, bumped myself up to maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. Not 7. Whatever. Some days you just don't have it. Going in, I was the Dragon's Tail or whatever they call it. It's basically like 2 S's of monkey bars. That was what I was worried about all week, trying to figure out how to do it right. Because in the video, there's people climbing over, there was people underneath, but using their feet, and then there was just people monkey barring it. When we got there, they just said the sand is lava. They said get over it however you want. You can climb on top, use your feet, do whatever. So I was like, well, damn. I was like, I don't have to monkey bar it. I climbed on top. The dude I was running with, he did the monkey bars, but I just climbed on top. I was like, hell with it. I was like, I'll save my arms for later in the race. I was like, since I'm not going to win, might as well just save my body a little bit in my hands in case I need them. So I did, I wouldn't say it's cheating, but I play within the rules on that one just because at the time I just, you know, whatever. The triangle monkey bar things, I thought that was actually near that dragon's tail, but it was actually towards the end of the race. That's what I was trying to save my energy for, because I couldn't count how many in the videos and pictures that they posted were across. I think it was maybe eight or nine, give or take. But I felt pretty good. It's just basically a chain, and there's like the metal pipe, the grip. I was going pretty good, and then probably about the fifth one I want to reach, but I didn't get my hand enough out, so then I just clipped it, like just barely like fingertipped it, so it turned sideways, and I'm just there swinging with one hand for like 10-15 seconds, spinning around. I'm like, oh crap. So then luckily I just went for it, and I just stuck my left hand out, hoping for the best, and I just happened to reach it and grab it. I got a grip, and then I went completing it without dropping down. So I was kind of relieved, but that definitely took a lot longer and a lot more energy than it needed to be. But that's what happens when you don't practice obstacles enough. There was like a rebar instead of like a cargo net going across vertically. They had like a rebar in squares. I took a lot of time because it wasn't fastened at the bottom, so it swung a little bit. So I was just stepping, I think I was like about 8-ish into the race. So I get near the end, and because it goes up, across, and then down. So I'm stepping down, and I'm like, well shit, there's an angle bar for the rig itself. I'm like, well, you just got to be careful. So I took a couple extra seconds, because if with my weight being on that side, if I would have swung back at all, I would have cranked my head off of it. That's one of the things I didn't want to do, is get hurt, get injured for next week. They had that jailbreak thing. It was just like the Tough Mudder, where you just like lay on your back, use the fence to propel yourself across. I just closed my eyes, kept reaching. There was like a little warped wall platform, and then you dive down in the water. I thought the warp wall was going to be a lot harder, because it had we'll just call it 6 or 8 inches, like of a step. So you really couldn't, it wasn't flush with the ground or the sand. So you couldn't really like get a running momentum, but all you really had to do was take a step or two and you could reach it. It was a lot easier than what it looked like at the time. I wasted a few seconds there just getting ready to get like a running start, or just you know, to be sure of myself. But again, that was like 7-8 miles. I already lost like the lead pack. Once in a while I saw 6 ahead, but nobody else. I'm trying to think what else. There was a little tire obstacle, a chain hanging down with a tire on it. You stepped in the tire and grabbed the chain and went across. That wasn't too bad. Just had to make sure of your core a little bit. There was a couple angled walls. They had like a rope in between on the two tops, like then coming down in the middle. So I just stuck my foot in the rope so I could reach up and get like a step. But there was like 3 consecutive ones. That was a little bit of a pain. Would be if you're short, might have a hard time with that. There was 2 angled walls actually in the water early on in the race. I forgot about. Sort of like Indian mud run, how he had it in the little pond. So you had to like get your foot on top of the wall, pull yourself up, and then drop down. But there was 2 of them that you had to do, so it made it a little bit more difficult, because you did the first one, drop down, got all wet, your hands are all wet, and then like the next one, you know, people's hands are wet, so the rope gets wet, and then their feet are wet, so it gets harder and harder. Well, more so as the day goes on, to get a good grip on that wall. Even though it's a short wall, it's going to be like very difficult for people later in the race after everything gets all wet and sandy. That was early on. There was another wall. I forget what that one was. Oh, I think there was a wall with balls. Maybe. I know there was like a 40-foot long angled wall, like an Olympus type Spartan one. I'm trying to think how they did this. I think it had wood blocks, then it had like a slack line. To a cargo net, maybe? I know there was a cargo net. There was something else in the middle. Yeah, the slack line, and then there was another wall with just grips. Yeah, I think it was just grips, and then cargo, and then it had the like Olympus balls. That wasn't too bad because you didn't have to do like 20 foot of Olympus balls. It was more like whatever it was, like 5 balls. So it wasn't too bad, but they did have like the Olympus hole cutouts on the another wall later in the race. Luckily, it was so the wall was so dry still, I didn't have a problem with that. And I think the angle was pretty good, so it wasn't too steep. It was more angled out more, so you could actually get a better footing. So that's a pretty good design. A couple other like water pits. I'm trying to think of how they did those. I know there was a sand dune and had some like posts sticking down, but you just had to make sure you went under. There was a lot of volunteers, I think, from the colleges, Mary Hurst or something like that. I mean, there was a couple with like cheerleading sections, but then there was a lot of guys, athletes or whatever, sorority or frat guys, and like each obstacle. So that was nice. They had a ton of help today for everybody. They had like 8 water stations, 7 or 8 water stations, basically just a tube with holes in it that just shot out like a sprinkler. So that's pretty efficient, so you didn't have to use cups. I think probably took like 4 things of water, so that cost me 5 minutes maybe. So again, as I'm talking, all this time's adding up, so you can see how much time I was wasting today that I could have used. Definitely gonna jettison me up way higher, because I definitely didn't just take like a quick swig. I was definitely chugging some water down 4 or 5 times I did it. I think what else offhand. All the inverted, I don't know, it's basically a still I-beam or something that's bent in the middle, but you put your feet in like the groove, and you sort of shimmy across it, but then you have to go up a little bit and then back down. It's not bad, but it's a nice little momentum killer, so it's pretty good to throw in there. Neat little design, not difficult, but again, it's to kill momentum, so it serves its purpose. I know I'm missing a lot of junk. Oh, there was a ladder, like a ladder obstacle, like 6 hanging ladders on rope, but you just had to like step from one to the other, but there's pivoting. That was kind of rough because the rope they were using on the one I took was like a nylon rope, and I kept holding onto that a little bit, so it was a little bit rough and felt it. Oh, here's a good one. That little barbed wire crawl that they had. I'll get to it in a second, but it was probably like 30, 40 feet long. probably closer to 40. So I'm going under it, and I thought it was barbed wire, because it was brown. So I thought it was like rusted barbed wire. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I was like, if I hit my back or anything, or my head on it, you know what I mean? Like, that's a tetanus shot. So I'm shimmying, like getting low to the ground. It's towards the end. It's only like 5 inches off the ground, and even if you're laying flat, you'd be scraping your back. Well, then this dude I was running with comes flying through it. I'm like, shit, how did he get scratched? So I reach up and touch it. Here it's a brown, like, nylon rope, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I swear to God, it looked like rusted barbed wire. So I lost like another 30 seconds to a minute there, just, you know, trying not to scratch my back. If I knew it was nylon rope, hell, I could have busted right through it and saved myself at 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm just like, oh, you dumbass, why didn't you pay attention more? But then they had this like a spider web thing, you know, like much different elasticy type ropes, like made their like spider webs that you had to go through. Another good momentum killer. I was just trying not to trip going through, so I took my time on that a little bit. I know there's 30 obstacles. I'm trying to think of everything. There's some sand mounds. Just what it sounds like. I'm drawing blanks. I'll remember later. Then, like, the last 7/10 of a mile to a mile, it's basically a run, which you start out on sand, and then maybe the last 4/10, 5 or a half mile, it's on the road. But then you got this they call heart attack hill or heartbreak hill, something like that. As you're coming back into the park, I was reeling in the kid in front of me who was in 6th. I could have and should have reeled him in. I just didn't have like the killer instinct, but I was reeling him in. I was like, all right, so what before then, because I could see him on the sand once in a while. And I was slowly gaining on him, you know, after like 7.5, 8 miles. On that hill, I was really starting to catch up to him. I was like, all right, we'll at least chase down one kid. He was a kid. He was probably like no older than 22 maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I started catching him. Well, here's dad or his buddy or something like that, who finished already, came down the hill to meet him. It gave him a word of encouragement, or told him I was like chasing him. All of a sudden he started like speeding up. I was like, damn it. Because he was maybe 5-10 seconds ahead of me, and I was gaining on him, closing the gap. But, you know, when he starts sprinting, there's no way for me to close that gap anymore. I was like, shit. I was like, I could have got that up one place if that dude didn't come down. So then I just pulled back again as I'm coming into the park, into the wave pool. Because 5 years ago when I did that wave pool, they had it cranked pretty good. I was in a heated battle with this one guy I knew. We were battling back and forth the whole race a couple years ago. We got to the wave pool. I about drowned or something because they had it cranked up so high. The waves were, I think, over my head. So when I reached for the ladder, the wave came and like knocked me out, like pulled me under. So I was taking my time since I couldn't catch that kid anymore because he was already halfway through the wave pool by the time I hit it. So I just took my time and just gradually waded towards the far end to the ladder. And then I tried to time it so a big wave hit me, then I could reach for the ladder. So it happened, and I started going up the ladder, another big wave, because the big waves were coming like right alongside the pool, cranked me, right as I'm like taking a step on the ladder, almost knocked me off. Had a nice mouthful of water there, but I got up, got out, finished. Like I said, I think I'm 7th, give or take a place. Talking with a couple people at the finish line, I'm pretty sure I'm 7. Again, I could have moved up a few if I had my A game or pushed a little bit harder. If I wasn't so damn hesitant on obstacles, would have saved me. I want to say at least 10-15 minutes easily, and then like another 5-10 just if I would have ran a little bit harder. Whatever. It's just not knowing the obstacles, I guess, and not being familiar with them. Whereas other people who've ran it the last couple of years are familiar with them, so they knew what to do coming in. Whereas I'm coming in, I wasn't sure, so I actually had to listen to the directions, because there's really no directions online how to do stuff or what the rules are for the elite wave. If you're open, you can just basically do whatever, skip whatever, complete it however you want. But the elites, you know, they're I don't want to say barking out rules, but they're yelling at us what the rules are as we're coming in, which is nice, so you know what to do and how to handle it. But like, I'm actually having to listen and pay attention, like slow down, so I understand what's going on. So that takes a little bit of time as well. Well, there was a rope climb, maybe like 10 feet. Dude I was running with, he's like, right side, right side. I'm like, huh? He's like, no knots. I wasn't even paying attention. I was headed towards the side with the knots, trying to read the sign. Like, 'cause all the obstacles have like the name on, like, I think the right hand side, and then the left hand side, it's like elites must complete all obstacles, but then there's some rules and stuff. So I'm trying to read the rules on like the left, and he's calling out right, and I'm like, huh? He's like, no knots. I'm like, what do you mean? Then he's and I realized what he was saying. He's like, right hand side had no knots, left hand had knots. Obviously it wasn't a big deal, because all I had to do was J-hook it real quick and go up. I was like, oh dude, I didn't even pay attention, like I wasn't even whatever. But just like little things like that, you know, slowing me down, trying to like read stuff. Oh, and on that barbed wire crawl, I'll tell you what, right after it, I got really itchy and scratchy. I don't know if whatever was there, like the sand, or probably sand fleas or something biting us all. But it just sucked. I could feel little scrapes on my elbows, and a little bit of knees. Maybe a little bit of sun, I don't know, I have to look later. There's my number 23 for the day. But I came out healthy, unscathed, so I could race next weekend at Roggen and all pretty good. So I guess all in all, that's a pretty good goal. The medal's cool. I got it right here. Might not be able to see it with the sun, but it's a really awesome design this year. I like how they have like a male and a female, and then that, like in the middle, like there's like a wheelchair type thing. So that's pretty nice. It's something different. That beast thing in the middle, that's their little mascot. They have like a mascot going around. It's like a green dragon, I guess, or a Loch Ness monster beast. Maybe a Loch Ness monster type beast. I left probably like 20 minutes after finishing, talking to a couple people on it. I wasn't going to stick around all day because it's a 3-hour drive home. Plus everybody was just coming in like so spaced out. I think there's 1,100 people total signed up. So you had from like 8:30 to 11:15 or 11:30, I think was the last start. So for 1,100 people, that's pretty spaced out time, because the 11:15, 11:30s are probably going to come in at like 3 o'clock, whatever. So it's just going to be like a slow, steady here, there, here, there. I wasn't going to stick around all day like I usually do. Kind of tired. The touch on the race itself, which is not my performance. I find it to be a really good race. I mean, it's not a national race series, it's a local race, but I'll tell you what, for the cost, I mean, obviously it's a cheaper race, but what they do for the race, the obstacles for the race, they're right on par with the top tier races nationwide. So you really do get a good value. They really do a good job of making sure things are safe, the volunteers and whatnot. And it is a really fun race. I will say that. Like I said, I've been wanting to come back for a couple of years now. It just never worked out. And I'm glad I came today, and I really did have fun. I'm just kind of grumpy about my performance not just being able to like turn it on today. So that is not a knock at all on the Barber Institute or the Barber Beast on the Bay, because I did honestly have a ton of fun. I just wish I could have did better. But I was actually going to run it again and video it for them, but I just really didn't have the energy to run through another 10 miles or do all that sand running. But I did want to promote them. So if you get a chance, get up here and do this race. You won't regret it. Again, it's for a good cause. I mean, with even the handful of like the grip strength type obstacles, you're getting more grip strength and stuff like that than you actually do it like a Spartan Beast. So you really do get your money's worth. Again, it's 30 obstacles, and there might be like 2 that are like, you're like, which would have been that little water bucket carry thing, and well, I guess they consider the trail test like it's just like a little bit of a trail run, and then that heart attack hill. Those 3 are, you know, they're not obstacles, but technically they are, because they just are. Yeah, you get a cool medal, a bib, a shirt. They actually have a couple of food trucks there after the race to buy some food, so you can support some more local businesses. There's, like I said, like 7-ish, 6 to 8, whatever, water stops along the course. There's plenty of bathrooms along the course. I would say there's 4 or 5 different actual physical building type restrooms along the course. It's actually a couple of them are right by the water stops, and then there's one right at the start. It's an actual building and not just porta johns, so that's nice as well. So I mean, it is a top-notch event. It's just not a national name. So they do have a lot going for them. The people are super friendly, and everybody's encouraging people along the way. There had to be a couple hundred people just out cheering, and then I seen cheering me on, like no idea who they were, just out having a good day, supporting people, supporting the Barber Institute. And again, it's a safe race, so you don't have to worry about getting hurt. There's also enough volunteers and medic going back and forth. One little trick that I thought about before the race, that I'm going to make another little short about, is when I first got out off the bus and I walked to the beach, I got a bunch of sand in my feet already. I could feel it on my toes. And I'm like, well, this just sucks. I was like, so my feet are just completely, how to put it, covered in sand, or there's going to be like a ton of sand in my shoes by the time the race is over. I was like, so how can I stop this? Like, just even at the start of the race, because I was like, oh, I'm going to get wet eventually, whatever. And I even had my gaiters on, but the toe box itself, you know, the gaiters don't cover it because they generally don't need them, because gaiters are more for like trail races, keeping rocks out and stuff like, or mud out, not sand that's very fine. So I came up with this brilliant idea to wet my shoes. So I go back to the bathroom, put my foot in the sink, and get the toe box and around the shoe wet. I was like, so the shoe's not as porous for the start of the race, because like I said, we start off, I'm going right into the sand. We'll call it a mile and a half before we actually get like wet. So all that sand had the potential to get my shoe, because it's fine, and you know, your normal shoes are like breathable no matter what kinds you get. So I came up with that brilliant idea to get my shoes wet to start, because I was like, well, they're gonna get wet after a mile and a half anyhow, so what's the difference if they do now? And I'll tell you what, it proved to be a really smart decision, because that first mile and a half, I didn't get any sand in my shoe, and I felt very proud of that, and I would like to share that little tip. So that's something I learned today and came up with on the fly. And so if you're going to run on the beach, wet your shoes, or if you're going to do like an obstacle course that's running on in the sand or something like that, you don't want to get, you know, you get, even if you have gaiters or whatever, if you're wearing running shoes, you know you're getting sand in your shoes. Guess what? Wet your feet. Well, wet your shoe, and it'll help keep out the sand, because your shoes aren't going to be as porous. So there's your little Dean Only Eye Athletics tip of the year. We're going to call that the tip of the year. So that being said, this is going on like 42 minutes. Wrap it up. Check it out next year. Come up and do it. You won't be disappointed.